I imagine the news that the Oakland Raiders cut their Pro Bowl punter Marquette King caught a lot of you by surprise and a lot of you off guard because, frankly, it did me. I'm looking at this team and I'm saying your priority after last season with bringing in a new head coach is cutting your punter? Like, he's one of the best on your team at what he does in relation to other people. Now, granted, you've got Khalil Mack and Derek Carr and so forth, but you think Marquette King is a problem? You think Marquette King and his performance is an issue? From a sheer football standpoint, this made absolutely no sense to me. So I was wondering what the rationale, the thought process that was going to be put out there in regards to this move. And the real initial narrative that was put out there just didn't really float with me. And that was that this was a move about clearing salary cap space. Marquette King's 2018 salary cap hit was just around $3 million, which put him about fifth amongst punters in the National Football League. Which makes sense because he is a top flight punter in the league. You know, he's been to Pro Bowls, among the league leaders in net punting average. Makes sense that he gets paid like a top guy at his position because he is a top guy at his position. But with a team just slightly above the salary cap after some of the moves they've made, this was an attempt to clear some salary cap space while also reprioritizing where their cap dollars go. That was a lot of what I saw initially in reference to this. And I just kind of have to throw the BS flag on this one. Because to me, you don't sit there and cut somebody that you don't have to worry about from a production standpoint. That just doesn't make any sense. Especially when the guy's in the peak of his career, and even though he's a higher paid punter, you're not devoting that much of your salary cap to him. And the special teams component of a team is incredibly important. That's why they call them special. Teams win or lose games based solely off of the strength of their special teams or the weakness of their special teams. Why in the hell would you want to get inherently weaker at a position like punter? A position that is very important, especially when you're trying to impact field position, change field position, and pin teams deep in their own territory. And at times you need a big booming punt to reset field position. Marquette King can do all of that. And to me, the whole thing about trying to clear salary cap space, then why in the frick is this team going out there and signing old players like Jordy Nelson and Leon Hall and Bruno Giacomini and Josh Johnson? Like, Josh Johnson still gets a job in the NFL. What the hell are the Raiders doing? Does John Gruden think this is 2010 all over again? I don't know what the hell's going on. If you don't sign some of these old farts, let's call it what it is, the old fart team trying to rebuild the Raiders like they were in 2001, 2002, where everybody was damn old and ancient, maybe you wouldn't have to cut your punter. And if we're going to use the salary cap logic as a reason, that to me also doesn't fly. Because you're ready to move on from Marquette King and his about $3 million. But meanwhile, you got Beast Mode, who was mediocre mode in 2017, who brings with him a $5.4 million cap hit in 2018, didn't break 1,000 yards last year, got suspended himself at one point in time. Oh, and by the way, is age 31, and you're going into a draft with the picks that the Raiders have in the second and third round, where they have the ability to draft a young player for a significantly lower cap hit, who will be at least as productive as Marshawn Lynch in 2018. Or Seth Roberts and his $4.45 million cap hit to be your slot receiver and give you all of 43 receptions and 455 yards and a touchdown. You're telling me that you can't find a receiver in this draft that, as a rookie, that could produce those types of numbers at a significantly lower cost? Rashaan Melvin, you signed Rashaan Melvin to a $5.3 million deal when he only played 10 games last year. And who the hell is Rashaan Melvin that you want to give him $5+ million damn dollars? I'm sorry, but from a salary cap standpoint, to me it is much easier, even though it is a punter, based off of his consistency and his production and performance, to sit there and say Marquette King is worth $3 million, whereas Marshawn Lynch isn't worth his figure, Seth Roberts isn't worth his figure, Rashaan Melvin isn't worth his figure. So to me, the whole logic here from a salary cap standpoint just doesn't make a whole lot of sense. We know what the real answer is. is that John Gruden doesn't like what Marquette King represents in terms of the antics and the dancing and the celebration and sometimes getting penalties. He doesn't like that. He's made that known as a commentator in the past, and it's not a surprise as a head coach that he's the one, and I know he was the one to sit there and make the decision to cut his Pro Bowl caliber punter. And it's just like, why? You're cutting the dude and you haven't even gotten a chance to work with him. You're basing it off of your preconceptions, your preconceived notions, and you haven't even went through an off season with the guy. You haven't even went through a mini camp with him, a training camp with him, a preseason with him, a regular season with him, and you're already going to make the decision to just move the hell on? Like, I'm sorry, maybe the antics could get a little childish from time to time. Maybe those are not the types of things that you want out of your punter. But ultimately, if you are that worried about the antics of your punter, maybe you have bigger issues at play here. And if you think cutting your punter, especially when he was a very productive player at his position, is going to send a positive message in your locker room, you are entirely twisted here. This one just didn't make a whole lot of sense to me. I'm sorry. I wonder how Raider Nation feels about this. I'm sure there will be some that were stunned by this and pissed off by it, and probably others that excuse it or might defend it and may have potentially good reasons to defend it. But just from the outside looking in, I just really can't understand why it was such a big deal that you had to cut Marquette King, because the salary cap logic to me is a complete and epic fail. And as far as the personality and so forth, I love Beast Mode, but Beast Mode is Beast Mode, and he can bring with him some baggage too. And this is a dude that sat there, didn't he get suspended a game for an altercation with a frickin' referee? But you like his over 30-year-old ass at a higher cap figure? I don't get it. I just don't get it. And maybe in the grand scheme of things, let's be realistic, it doesn't matter that much. But to me, I don't like the concept of creating a need for the sake of creating a need. And that's what it feels like John Gruden and the Oakland Raiders did here. They cut Marquette King when they really didn't need to. They really didn't have to. They just wanted to. And it seems like an exercise in futility to me.